Time and the Kings of the Elements. There was once a married pair who loved each other tenderly. The husband would not have given up his wife for all the riches in the world, while her first thought was how best to please him. Accordingly, they were very happy, and lived like two grains in one ear of corn. One day while working in the fields, a great longing came over him to see her. Without waiting for the hour of sunset he ran home. Alas, she was not there. He looked high and low. He ran here, there, and everywhere. He wept, and he called to her. However, despite his thorough search, his dear wife was not to be found. So heartbroken was he that he no longer cared to live. He could think of nothing but the loss of his dear wife and how to find her again. At last he determined to travel all over the world in search of her. In the morning, as the sun rose, he set out to walk as far as necessary, trusting God to direct his steps. Sad and thoughtful, he wandered for many days, until he reached a cottage close by the shores of a great lake. Here he stopped, hoping to find information on his dear wife, and rest his weary soul for a time. Upon knocking at the door of the cottage he was greeted by a woman who filled the doorway with an attitude of hostility. "What do you want here, unlucky wretch?" said she. "If my husband sees you, he will kill you instantly." "Who is your husband then?" asked the traveler. "What? How do you not know of him? My husband is the Water King. Everything under water obeys his command. Depart quickly, for if he finds you here he will certainly devour you. I am too tired and broken to care what your husband may do to me. I beg of you, hide me somewhere, that I may have shelter for the night, and, perhaps, he may take pity on me." With the words of the traveler the Water Queen was persuaded, and hid him behind the stove. Almost immediately after he was tucked away, the Water King returned and entered the cottage. He had barely crossed the threshold when he called out, "Wife, I smell human flesh. Set the table and let us eat. I am hungry." She dared not disobey him, and so she had to tell him of the traveler's hiding place. The poor man became terribly frightened, and trembled in every limb, and began to stammer out excuses. "I assure you I have done no harm. I came here in search of news of my poor wife. Please, spare me, and help me to find her. I cannot live without her." "Well," replied the Water King, "as you love your wife so tenderly, I will forgive you for coming here. However, I cannot help you to find her, for I do not know where she is. I advise you to ask my brother the Fire King, he may be able to tell you more." Happy to have escaped in one piece, he thanked the Water King and set out to find the Fire King. When he eventually did, he was saddened to learn that he was unable to help him and could only advise him to consult his other brother, the Air King. Accordingly, he set out again. When he finally caught a whiff of the Air King, he was informed that, though he had traveled all over the earth, he could only say that he thought he had seen a woman at the foot of the Crystal Mountain not a few days ago that resembled the description the traveler provided. Though the odds of this woman being his wife were not great, the traveler was cheered at the news because the Crystal Mountain was, after all, near their cottage. With a slightly buoyed heart, he set out once again to seek his wife. Upon reaching the foot of the mountain he began at once to climb by making his way up a gorge created by the river that came rushing down there. As he made his way, several ducks that were in the pools near a waterfall called out, "My good man, don't go up there. You'll surely be killed, it is a very dangerous place." Despite their warnings, he walked fearlessly on, as he had nothing to live for without his wife. He climbed till he came to some thatched cottages located on some level ground along the river. He headed directly to largest of them and was greeted by a crowd of wizards and witches that surrounded him, screaming at the top of their voices. "What are you looking for, stranger?" "My wife," said he. "She may be here," they cried, "but you cannot take her away unless you recognize her among 200 women all exactly like her." "What? Not know my own wife? Why, here she is," said he, as he clasped her in his arms. And she, delighted to be with him again, kissed him fondly. Then she whispered, "Dearest, though you knew me today I doubt whether you will tomorrow, for there will be so many of us all looking alike. Now I will tell you what to do. At nightfall go to the top of this Crystal Mountain, where live the King of Time and his court. Ask him how you may know me. If you are good and honest, he will help you, if not, he will devour you whole in one mouthful." "I will do what you advise, my love," he replied. But tell me, why did you leave me so suddenly? If you only knew what I have suffered. I have sought you all over the world. I did not leave you willingly," said she. "A countryman asked me to come and look at a strange sight in the river. When we got there, he sprinkled some water over himself, and at once I saw wings growing out of his shoulders. He had soon changed his shape entirely into that of a drake, and at the same time, I found myself also transformed into a duck, and whether I wanted to or not, I was compelled to follow him. Once we reached this little warren, I was allowed to resume my own form, and now there is but the one difficulty of being recognized by you to gain my freedom." So they parted, she to join the other women, he to continue his way up the crystal mountain. At the top he found 12 strange beings sitting round a large fire. They were the attendants of the King of Time. He saluted them respectfully. "What dost thou want?" said they. "I have lost my dear wife. She was taken from me, and I must rescue her. Can you tell me how to recognize her among 200 other women all exactly alike?" "No," said they, "but perhaps our king can." Then arose from the midst of the flames an old man with bald head and long white beard, who, on hearing his request, replied, "Though all these women be exactly alike, thy wife will have a black thread in the shoe of her right foot." Finished with the audience, he vanished, and the traveler, thanking the 12, turned and descended the mountain. Sure as the mountain itself, if it had not been for his knowledge of the black thread, he would never have recognized his wife. And though the magician tried to hide her, the spell was broken, and the two returned rejoicing to their home, where they lived happily ever after.